Hello everyone. Today I, the Kahuna, will be taking on a Hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald with a twist. I can only catch one Pokemon of each type. Chances are, if you clicked on this video, you already know what a Nuzlocke is. If that's the case, good for you, you masochist. If you don't, there's a detailed rundown in the description below. But essentially, it's permadeath, I can only catch a Pokemon if they're from a new route and type, and I can't use bagged items in battle. Now, let's stop wasting time and kick things off. We begin our journey with having only taken 2 steps out of our hometown to find the lone Pokemon expert being chased around by a rabid raccoon. After blackmailing the professor to let me keep a Pokemon if I save him, I choose Torchic as our starter and dub him General So, the chicken. Mudkip might have been the better option here, but since people have literally beaten the game solely using little old Mudboy, I decide to opt for a harder route. Once the whole save the professor ordeal is over, I go snag our first encounter, a Poochyena by the name of Treebark, giving us our dark type for the run. I proceed to tiptoe my way through as little grass as possible on the following route, Route 103, because I, unlike probably everyone else in the world, didn't want to run into a Ralts on the incredibly small chance we came across one, hoping to spend our psychic type encounter on another fella later on. Upon reaching Petalburg, I can finally buy repels. I proceed to dump nearly all my money into these hopefully non-carcinogenic lawn chemicals so I can get some control over my encounters. Afterward, I stumble into a Marill on the beach to our left and name it Will Marill, giving us our water type for the run. Name aside, this was a massive dub because there was a good chance I got a Lotad here who, while being my favorite Pokemon, isn't the best for this run since putting my water and grass encounters together on the same Pokemon would have given me a significant disadvantage versus the plethora of flying types in this game. From there, I use repels to get all the way to Whismur Cave, where I catch our normal type for the run, Whismur, who I give the title of Daft Funk. At this point, I felt like we were plenty strong enough to take on the first gym leader, Roxanne. However, I grossly underestimated her nose pass, because 1, it knew the move Block, which prevented us from switching out if nose pass used it on us, and 2, unlike all the rock types leading up to this fight, nose pass ate Will Marill's sole water move, Water Gun, like a champ, thanks to which things are looking bad until we luckily land a crit, allowing us to sneak our way out of this one with no deaths. Tired of fighting, I decided to take the team on a nice vacation to a little beach village by the name of Dewford Town. There, I realized we forgot sunscreen, so I figure Repel's gotta have some sort of SPF rating, right? And oh man, was I wrong, as I realized it only makes the sun feel even more intense. In an attempt to get out of the sun, me and the team sprint into a nearby cave where we run into a dude by the name of Steven, who is weirdly passionate about rocks. He sees a letter sticking out of my bag and takes it. Apparently, his old man gave it to me back in the last town in hopes that I run into Steven and give it to him. Missing the world of battling, I decide it's time to take on the second gym. However, I take a slightly unorthodox detour to Slateport Town, which I can now go to since we gave the letter to Steven. This is great because I can squeeze out one more encounter before the fight. Said encounter ends up being an Oddish by the name of Rad Radish. After a little grind session, we make our way back to Brawly, who I'm a little scared of thanks to his Makuhita. Not only did it have the ability Guts, meaning I couldn't give it a status condition without boosting its already high attack, it had the move Bulk Up, which boosts both the user's physical attack and defense by 1 stage. He gets in a couple of those and I'm as good as toast. Oh, and throw in my lack of any true offensive counters to fighting types and things get complicated, to say the least. Regardless, I work with what we have and come up with a plan. Rad Radish ends up being the key because of 3 reasons. 1, Sleep Powder. 2, Flash. And 3, wait for it, Sweet Scent. Now, you're probably wondering, how is Sweet Scent, of all moves, useful? Well, simply put, it isn't. At least not on its own. In tandem with the other 2 aforementioned moves, and Oddish's poison typing giving it resistance to the fighting moves Makuhita will throw at it, Rad Radish can stay out versus Makuhita long enough to effectively remove it from the battle by slowly blinding Makuhita. This is done by repeatedly putting Makuhita to sleep, aka the only status move I can give to it without having to worry about the effect of Guts, since Makuhita can't hit us while it's napping, and then spamming it with Sweet Scent until it couldn't dodge a sloth running into it. At that point, Flash is all but guaranteed to hit, so I spam that until Makuhita never wants to open its eyes again. From there, we can pivot to anyone else and slowly chip away at Brawly's ace until victory is ours, as Makuhita can hardly hit us at this point, nonetheless stand. However, to pull off this plan, I had to find a way to actually swap into Rad Radish once I got to Makuhita, as she can't really do much prior. So I lead off with General So, whose access to the flying type move Peck allows me to get to Brawly's ace fairly easily. Sadly, I felt it was necessary to sack Tree Bark to assure Rad Radish could get in safely, as its Intimidate ability was able to knock Makuhita down a stage in its attack and help assure a softer landing for Rad. At the very least, his sacrifice assures the strategy works, allowing us to move on with the run. Sleep well, brave prince. Thanks to this definitely not cheesy dub, we finally have access to Bulk Up and give it to General So. Thereafter, we make our way to Route 10, taking a quick pit stop at a local flea market to buy a Will Merrill doll, because we gotta rep the GOAT. Once at the infamous Route 10 rival battle, we spam Howl with Daft Punk versus Maze Lombre, who couldn't really do much to Daft Punk in the meanwhile. With their attack now sky high, Daft Punk handles the rest of the fight with ease. We go on to Route 117 and catch our bug type for the run, an Illumise named Luminately. Of course, I get the only bug type that can't learn a bug type move in this game, but we'll make do. Anyways, we head over to Watson. Here, we use Rad Radish's Sleep Powder, Sweet Scent, Flash combo, once again to allow General So to come in and get a couple bulk ups off and sweep from there. Admittedly, I nearly lost Daft Punk in the process, as I tried to do the same thing with her and Howl, only to have a pipe bomb named Voltor blow up in our face. Regardless, we somehow get out of there with no deaths. From there, we started making the trek up to Fall Arbor Town. Most of the routes along the way were void, since there weren't any new typings for me to catch, with the exception of Route 113, where I ended up getting a Skarmory as our Steel Flying type for the run. Admittedly, I planned a large portion of the run around this moment, knowing I could guarantee a Whismur to avoid normal types like Spinda and Tailo, and using Repels to avoid the only steel types that show up prior, being Mawile and Aaron in Granite Cave. I was in a great position to hold out for this incredible encounter, who I never had the chance to use in prior Nuzlocks. I was super excited because I had been dying to use a Skarmory for a while and just had not had the chance. But with my luck, Derek Jeter, yes, I named her that, will likely die in 2 fights. Lo and behold, 2 battles later, Ninja Boy Lao sends out not 1, not 2, but 3 self-destructing coughings in a row versus Derek Jeter. Nearly speaking, that cursed it into reality. But good old Jet is a champ and holds her ground. We then make our way to Meteor Falls, where we finally catch the Psychic type I wanted over Ralts, a Soul Rock by the name of Hard Rock Cafe, who also takes up our rock encounter for the run. The main reason for me wanting Soul Rock is because its rock typing and levitate ability allow for it to be a really useful defensive pivot throughout the run. Then comes a big brain move. The rules state that I can only catch Pokemon that aren't of the same route nor type. Say a Pokemon were to evolve and change its type, that could potentially free up said typing for me. Luckily, Rad Radish has 2 possible evolutions. Vileplume, a grass poison type like Rad Radish currently is, and Blossom, who drops the poison typing to become a mono grass. And what do you know? Soul Rock has a 5% chance of dropping a Sun Rock. Hard Rock Cafe predictably did not have one, so I proceeded to farm for them using the Thief TM I had acquired back at the museum. During this process, no one died, but I felt like I should have still added a death to the counter because it took so long that I thought I died a little inside. After using the Sunstone on Rad Radish and freeing up our poison type slot, I went back to the fiery path and got Meatwad the coughing. Oh, and after which I stopped terrorists from blowing up a volcano and make my way to Flannery, whose team is deathly allergic to bubbles. Except for the tortoise that prefers death by rock. I walk out of the gym only to run into our rival, who rewards me with a pair of sand goggles. Now that I can finally walk in the desert, I catch a sand slash called Porcumine, our ground type for the run. Get it? Like porcupine, but it's Porcumine, as in a porcupine who mines. That? Get it? That? I'll shut up now. Anyways, this sadly locks us from getting a dragon type for the run, as Trapinch was our only hope at this point, as catching Soul Rock and Meteor Falls prevents us from getting Bagon, who's found at the same location and that location only, and Will Merrill prevents us from getting Horsey due to overlapping typing. By the way, did I mention how Porcumine doesn't learn a ground type attack until level 45 when he learns Sand Tomb as his only one? No? Okay, cool, awesome. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew that because, oh boy, was I pleased to see that. However, I'm a firm believer that no Pokemon is worthless, so I slapped Dig on the Porcumine and evolved him for good measure. After dumping the sand for my shoes, we head back home to show my dad who the real man of the house is. For some reason, he led with a Spinda and spammed Teeter Dance, so I decided to spam right back by swapping to Derek Jeter, who ate any attack Spinda threw at her while spamming Pocket Sand. I proceeded to do this until the poor bunny's accuracy couldn't go any lower, at which point Rad Radish could come out and put it to sleep, allowing General So to swap in safely and undergo bulking season, after which he was able to smash everything else at the gym, getting us yet another clean victory. On my way to the 6th gym, Watson stops me to ask if I can help get malware off his computer, and in the process of doing so, I catch our electric type for the run, Bolton the Voltorb. Shortly thereafter, Bolton became a shiny Hisuian Voltorb in a random double battle in one of the fights leading up to the next gym leader, flying type user Winona. This really blows because having an electric type would have been a huge help for all the water types following this gym, but alas. Regardless of this loss, the gym was going pretty well until I got to Winona's ace, Altaria. See that bird? Yeah, I hate it. It's evil and I hate it. You might see a simple, poofy little bird, but your eyes are lying to you. This isn't a mere bird. This isn't Altaria. This is essentially a Garchomp. Actually, no. Scratch that. It is a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, not only is it illegal, as it is underleveled to be in its final evolution, but Winona also has the audacity to give it a moveset of Dragon Dance, Dragon Breath, Aerial Ace, and wait for it, Earthquake. Yep, pretty much Garchomp. Altaria was already a fairly strong Pokemon at this point in the game, but giving it Dragon Dance plus EQ allowed it to not only decimate 2 out of 3 of Flying types counters in Rock and Electric types, it allowed it to be so strong that pretty much any Pokemon without ground immunity was doomed to die versus it. This battle right here is exactly why I wanted Solrock and Skarmory, because both could avoid EQ thanks to one's Levitate ability and the other's Flying type respectively. Despite having them in Meatwad, a fellow Levitate user that I didn't really build the plan around but managed to get along the way, this Altaria still wrecked house with me, as I was able to get it down to only 1 HP before I had to swap out of Derek Jeter. To make matters worse, at this point Altaria had 2 to 3 Dragon Dances up, making it so nearly anyone without some serious bulk would struggle versus it. Hard Rock Cafe was my first thought as a pivot, but the poor thing got paralyzed by a Dragon Breath shortly after entering, causing me to panic, as now I wouldn't be fast enough to get a move off and finish it. So in my panic, I swapped to Daft Punk, anticipating another Dragon Breath which he could hopefully counter with her alright special defense, only for her to get knocked out. Given how Porcumine was the only member left with full health and had decent defense, I swapped to him thinking, oh yeah, he might be able to eat a 3 times boost to EQ. Only remember, I'm an idiot and watched the 3rd death for my team in the past 10 minutes. At this point, I had all but given up on the run. Surely this had to be it. My only 2 legitimate counters were paralyzed and no one else in the party had a priority move to finish the job. In one last desperate attempt, I sent out Hard Rock Cafe and awaited my all but certain fate. However, fate had other plans. Hard Rock Cafe miraculously managed to get an attack off and save the run. Dumbfounded, I can't figure out how this happened until I remember one crucial piece of info. I gave Hard Rock Cafe the Quick Claw a while ago, allowing for it to occasionally get an attack off first. The damn thing must have popped off and saved the run because there was no other reason Hard Rock Cafe could have pulled off the feat it just did. Ecstatic that the run was still alive, I called for reinforcements and moved on. At this point, I knew I had to get my act together. I now lost a fourth of the Pokemon I could use for the run and refused to lose anymore. So I proceeded to lose Meatwad and Luminately to a random battle on the route immediately thereafter. What happened? Well, Lady Luck decided to make me pay for my Quick Claw sins by getting me into a battle with a Manectric and a Castform. Wait for it, in the rain. Now, at first glance, this isn't anything too scary. In fact, it probably looks trivial. Wrong. Not only did the rain turn Castform into a water type, giving me little coverage outside of Radish to take both it and Manectric on, it also meant that certain moves became more accurate. And by certain moves, I mean Thunder. Because didn't I mention this Manectric knew Thunder, aka a base 110 power move that goes from 70% accuracy to a guaranteed hit in the rain? So yeah, that was fun, especially after losing my lone ground type for the run. Alas, I managed to barely get out of the battle with the help of Radish's nap time dust and move on. This time, I mean it when I say no more deaths, because now we had lost a third of the Pokemon that we had available for the run, two of which were likely key in my tentative plan I had brewing for Wally the Water type champion. With death on our heels, we made our way to Lilycove City. Along the way, we get a much needed pick-me-up by catching our ghost type encounter for the run, Muppet the Shuppet. We go on the Mollywop to terrorist organizations, and in return for my team's efforts, I reward them with a relaxing cruise to Moss Deep. There, we easily get through Tate and Liza thanks to Muppet's super effective Shadow Ball and Hard Rock Cafe and Derek Jeter being absolute tanks. Low tide finally comes in, so before leaving Moss Deep, I made sure to cop the Shell Bell and our final encounter of the run, our Ice type encounter, Vanilla Ice the Snow Runt from Shoal Cave. From there, nothing really big happens until the next gym, with the exception of some gods yelling at each other. Finally, I get to the last gym leader, Juan. The water type gym leader, renowned for ending runs with his double team spamming Kingdra, and since Kingdra lacks a weakness in this generation, I likely couldn't take it out quickly enough to avoid it stacking double teams, so I had to be especially careful about this gym. So, I built our plan around our fire type, General So. Now you may be asking, Luke, what the f***? Let me explain. You see, Juan likes to lead off with Love Disc, who only knows two attack moves, Water Pulse and Flail. Given how the latter does essentially no damage when Love Disc is at full health, I bought a ton of Protect TMs and used switching to bait out our heart-shaped friend into using all its PP for Water Pulse, giving General So a prime chance to come in and bulk up to Super Saiyan 3, because at this point, Love Disc can't really do anything to it. It takes a bit due to General So getting horny, but he eventually moves on from Love Disc and sweeps the rest of the gym with the power of kicking and friendship. On to Victory Road, which starts off horribly as I lose Derek Jeter to Wally as he swapped in a Magnet Pull Magneton while she was out there. Sleep well, brave bird. You will be missed. Outside of that, we get through Victory Road with little trouble. All that was left was the Elite Four. I go back to Lilycove to buy a ton of TMs with the money I otherwise would have spent on potions at this point of a non-hardcore Nuzlocke run, and with literally only enough Pokemon to make one final team, we embarked on the final leg of our journey. First up is Sydney, the Dark-type Elite Four member. Given how this type isn't really good in this generation, since all of Hoenn's Dark types are physical attackers burdened by their stab moves being special attacks, he isn't much of a threat. But to be safe, I hit his lead with a taunt, knowing 2 out of 4 of their moves are non-attacks. From there, I swap to General So, who sets up a bulk up and throws out a substitute before kicking all of Sydney's Pokemon into a pulp. Remember those TMs I bought? Well, one of them was substitute and man, oh man, is it already coming in clutch. Although this little test run makes me realize that this strat of comboing substitute and bulk up takes quite a bit of HP. so I give General So the Shell Bell to get back some HP anytime he lands a hit going forward. Next is Phoebe, who uses her otherwise cheery appearance to hide the fact that she's the best Ghost-type trainer in Hoenn. But she certainly isn't the best trainer in Hoenn, as another substitute bulk up setup from General So takes out 3 of her 5 Pokemon before I run out of PP. What's left of her team gets picked off by Vanilla Ice. After making the undead dead again, we make our way to Glacia, the Ice-type specialist and 3rd member of the Elite Four. Once again, only half of the lead Pokemon's moves are attacks, so I start off with the same strat of having Vanilla Ice taunt, then swap to General So to set up a sub and bulk up, which is in large part a successful pivot thanks to this Celio lacking any water moves. Alas, So gets a little too low on HP fairly quickly, and we're only able to get 1 bulk up off before I feel like we have to start getting in some hits to regain health. Also, I would like to mention how absolutely broken of a combo Shell Bell plus multi-hit moves are in Hardcore Nuzlocke. I really wish I had thought of this combo sooner. Anyways, things get complicated when Glacia's ace, Walrein, comes out while poor old General So is left naked and substituteless out in the cold. So we hightail out of there to good old Will Merrill, who gets off a Toxic. In the few turns I was out there with Will Merrill, I realized Walrein is spamming Body Slam, so predicting this, I swap out to our Ghost-type Muppet. And with this free swap, I hit Walrein with the Shadow Ball, which luckily crits, putting the Walrein away. From there, Vanilla Ice puts up a light screen, and General So comes out to finish things off with his classic substitute bulk up shenanigans. Now is where things get hard, because if you couldn't guess it, my strat with Blaziken suddenly doesn't work, as nearly all of the next trainer break the Dragon Master's Pokemon are resistant to General So's moves. Luckily, 60% of his team is 4 times weak to Ice. The only problem is my only 2 means of Ice coverage have bad special attack or lack the speed to make up for it. I mean, just look at Vanilla Ice's stats. I have never seen a more well-rounded Pokemon. Get it? Well-rounded? Nah.
You're making me very uncomfortable. Please leave. Please leave.
Okay. I'll move on again. Bad pun again. Anyways, I go back to an old strat and lead with Rad Radish, who quickly puts the Game Sphere to sleep, and I swap out to Vanilla Ice. We proceed to put up a light screen to counter any potential Dragon or Fire type moves, and then spam Ice Beam from there, nearly dying in the process. Thanks to swapping the Shell Bell from General So to Vanilla Ice right before the battle though, the latter managed to keep his cool and live another day. Albeit, by the time he's tuckered out, there's still 2 Pokemon left. Altaria and Kingdra, both of which know Dragon Dance, but only have 1 physical move each that actually utilizes it, since Dragon Dance raises physical and not special attack each time it's used. Even better for me, their lone physical attacks can be dodged via immunity using Hard Rock Cafe's Levitate to avoid Altaria's Earthquake, and Muppet's Ghost typing, making it so Kingdra's Body Slam phases right through him, allowing me to get away scotch-free yet again. Okay, this time for real, this is where things get hard. Sure, all that's left is the champion, but unlike the rest of his understudies, Wallace doesn't lead with a weak Pokemon. Rather, he starts off with a Wailord, whose gimmick is Water Spout, a water-type move that gains power based off the user's HP at the time of use. Wanna guess how much this is for a Pokemon with the 8th highest HP stat of all the games? A base power of 150, and that's assuming it doesn't get a Rain Dance off beforehand, which it is also rocking in its move pool. So, rather than mess around and set up like I normally do, I gotta come out swinging if we're gonna win this, as the sooner Wailord's HP goes down, the better. And because of which, I lead off with Rad Radish and immediately hit it with a Giga Drain. After putting it to sleep, I feel it's safe enough to go to strategy A, General So. Yep, I am that sadistic to try and be a water-type trainer with a fire-type yet again. You see, there's some rationale here though. Wallace's Wailord only knows 1 water-type move, the aforementioned Water Spout. Since that move is relying on HP, I figure a non-effective Fire Punch would be able to get him close to 1 HP, and make the attack that the AI would default to, since it's quote-unquote super effective, do essentially nothing, allowing General So to set up and hopefully sweep from there. Alas, Wailord woke up and, thanks to Rain Dance, still had too powerful of a spout to do this. So, I rinse and repeat with Rad Radish. Luckily, Wallace does the same thing with Rain Dance, setting up another one and allowing me to pivot to plan B, Muppet. By now you may have noticed that good old Muppet has been rocking some electric moves. One in particular being Thunder, the base 110 power move that we also learned the hard way how strong it can be when it doesn't miss in the rain. Lo and behold, those random trainers who handed our ass back to us on Route 120 ended up doing us a favor, as that painful reminder ends up teaching me how to knock out one of the champ's Pokemon and do some significant damage to his follow-up, Tentacruel. Sadly, I have to swap here since Tentacruel is a special defensive tank, but it's alright because in my research I noticed how Wallace's Tentacruel and Milotic both rock Toxic. And since he used said move on Muppet, who I gave a Pecha Berry preparing for this exact instance, I get the foresight to swap out to Vanilla Ice, who isn't rocking any items. Oh wait, that's not good. If Tentacruel proceeds to try and poison Muppet again because it got rid of the poison, Vanilla Ice has no means to heal from it, because I did not give him a Pecha Berry. But this is exactly what I wanted. You see, I had a backup plan for these toxic users in teaching Vanilla Ice TM Facade right before this battle. Since Facade is a base 70 move that doubles in power if the user is under a status condition, Vanilla is able to mollywop Tentacruel and deal a heavy hit to Ludicolo before going down himself, sadly. With little coverage versus Ludicolo, I use a combination of General So and Muppet to take him out, sadly losing our brave General and starter in the process. Next up comes out Wishcash, who is one-hit KO'd by Rad Radish. Thereafter comes the biggest threat of this entire run, Milotic. You see, not only does this Milotic know Toxic, as mentioned earlier, it knows Recover, so it could easily stall me out if I'm not careful. To try and prevent this, I immediately get off a Safeguard with Rad Radish. Sadly, it's not quick enough as I get poisoned in the process. In an attempt to put it to sleep and prevent any recovery, I proceed to try Sleep Powder only to miss and get taken out by 2 Ice Beams, as Rad was slower than Milotic. I pivot to Wilmeril, the last of the OGs, to give it a taste of its own medicine by hitting Milotic with Toxic. Since I lack recovery on Wilmeril, Protect helps get the job done here. Even though Safeguard wears off during this lengthy process, I'm able to chug ahead with the plan since I also gave Will a Pecha Berry, and he resists Milotic's only attacks, these being Surf and Ice Beam. Thankfully, Wallace doesn't use Recover for some reason, and I'm able to stall out.
All that leaves is Gyarados, which sucks as Wilmeril is too low on HP to last a single turn with him, and my only 2 remaining Pokemon are either low on health or at a significant type disadvantage.
With little options left, I picked the depressing but safe option and let Wilmeril die so his comrade, Hard Rock Cafe, can come in. With our backs against the wall and the run on the line, it all came down to this. A rock type versus one of the most powerful water types in the game. Wallace had to have been cackling in his throne at this point, thinking victory was his with this sure advantage. But my team won't go down without a fight. Hard Rock Cafe, brimming with anger that this chump with horrible fashion taste was laughing at our dead allies, literally exploded with anger, wiping both him and that wannabe water dragon out, sealing us the victory as we still had 1 Pokemon left in our party, good old Muppet, who now ironically is cursed to stay in the land of the living as a ghost type while all his friends had moved on to Pokemon Valhalla. And with that, concludes what was probably one of the most intense runs I have ever played through. Shout out to Hard Rock Cafe for the endearing sacrifice at the end. It wouldn't have been possible without you, and to all the other Pokemon lost along the way.
Have you ever noticed that these Pokemon are so bad that in the game called Sun and Moon, they did nothing?
Oh, and Aaron? You.